Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Welcome back, Sixers, to another episode of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. This is episode 140. Today is July 17th, 2023. I'm Bill, and I'm joined, as always, by my labyrinthine co-hosts, Amy and Jordan. And if you notice by Amy's shirt and the glorious expression on our guest's face, we do have a guest host today. Welcome, Steve from Read and Find Out.
Hi.
Thank you for moving.
I was frozen. It was just...
I was looking for a way to permanently lock it to that face, but I couldn't find the option.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I was just waiting for Amy to break.
We've had Steve on a few times, and it's always a good time. So we're glad to have you back for this dive into the madness that is the Cosmere. Because before we get started, we do want to remind our listeners, this is not a spoiler-free show. There are spoilers galore, and tonight especially, because we are diving into, we're going to continue our discussion of Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, which we talked about last week, Brandon's latest book, but we're also looking at all of the Cosmere connections in it. So there are going to be Cosmere spoilers all over the place. So if you haven't read things and you're worried about spoilers, you'll probably want to go check that out. For those of you who listen to the podcast recordings or watch the videos on YouTube, we do want to remind you that it's possible for listeners to interact with us live via chat as we record each episode at www.youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. That's right. Just as a reminder, we have moved our live recordings streaming on Monday nights. That is now on our YouTube channel. We do record episodes every other Monday night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So please join us, take an active part in the discussion, be a part of the chat, because we've got some great discussions over here. And honestly, you could probably throw a wrench into our conversation. Isn't that really why people go to YouTube in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies is made possible by the support of our listeners and patrons. The show will, of course, continue to be free, but if you want to help us out, you can head over to patreon.com/Cosmere Studies. Even pledging $1 or $2 per episode really helps us out as we continue to work to improve the show. Patrons get immediate access to our Discord channel, where you can talk about the show and the Cosmere with other listeners. We've got a good community over there. We've got some great discussions, especially as a million new Brandon books are coming out this year. There's always fun conversations going on around the latest book.
That is an exact number as well.
Yeah. What was the number I used? Bajillion?
A million.
A million. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So you used a real number, which is how we know it is like scientifically accurate.
Yes.
Correct.
You also get early access to bonus episodes, exclusive access to other bonus content, and other good stuff. This week, we want to thank our newest patron, Daniel K. Thank you so much. You're awesome, and we really appreciate it. As for announcements, we are back on our normal schedule. So we took 3 weeks to give us extra time to read Yumi and the Nightmare Painter the first time. And then now this is just 1 week later. That puts us back on our regular schedule. So yay for that.
Every other week again. Yeah.
Jordan, do you have any updates on the monetization drive?
Yes, I do. But vamp for me, because I forgot to pull it up before we did this.
Vamp?
Yeah, you're doing great. I was hoping for conversation. We got a dance number instead. That's really good. All right. We are currently at 1,859 hours out of 3,000. That puts us at Bing 61.97%.
I think you mean Bing.
No, because he's not that copyrighted actually.
Well then.
Depends on how much AI you
might have it copyrighted. Anyway,
I think Groundhog Day has it copyrighted.
Well, so something that apparently, so we've created that nice long playlist for everyone, and then I found out that YouTube has changed things. So if you've been listening to the playlist, I got good news and bad news. Good news, you've really helped us with our viewership numbers and getting us pushed more onto YouTube. Bad news, it turns out only the first video you watch on a playlist now counts for view hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Huh.
and if you mute the video, it doesn't count at all. So if you're looking to help us out, specifically with the watch hours, if you're just wanting to listen to us, that's awesome. It helps us out anyway. What I've done, I found an old iPhone I have that still has the YouTube app on it, and it's just next to my sink in the bathroom. So whenever I go in there, I just hit the next video, and it moves to the next video. Volume's barely on, and so it only sounds like my bathroom is slightly haunted by a very mumbly ghost.
Oh
Okay.
boy.
There are worse things.
There are much worse things. But this is actually a huge jump. We were in the 50s before last week, so we're getting there. The big thing is this will get us to able to have channel memberships.
Mhm.
To get ads, we'll need to find a way to scrounge up about 250 more followers and get 1,000 more watch hours on top of that. So we're gonna need to up our outreach game.
Yeah, so if you have friends who are fans of the Cosmere, though, we'd love it if you'd promote the show to them, let them know about it. And, if there are things that they don't like about the podcast, tell us what you want. Like, tell us if there are things that you're, like, if there are specific topics and stuff that you'd like to hear from us, because we are happy to shape things. I mean, like, we have a schedule planned out, but we want to make content people want to watch.
Yeah,
so.
you should also follow Steve too.
Well,
And
obviously,
people that follow me should follow you guys. Like, let's help each other here.
Symbiotic,
cross
yeah.
promotion. See,
Hey.
that's exactly what's happening right now.
Win-win.
Oh,
But yeah, so that's the update.
Cool. All right. Well, that means it's time to move on to the Cosmere Thing of the Week. Our Cosmere Thing of the Week this time are some drawings that Amy found on Twitter. They are of Nikaro's painter crew, and they're done by what is
Botanica Zoo.
Botanica Zoo.
Yeah.
Botanica Zoo. And they're just some great images.
I kind of think they're AU, like they're not.
Yeah, I picture them a little differently in my head, but you know what? I still love them. Because I pictured Akane a bit more fancy dressed, like she's a little bit more glam than this.
Mm-hmm.
But
I imagine Masaka just having like a giant fourth doctor sized scarf. Masaka.
I didn't picture a scarf, but I did picture like a
poofy
turtleneck type sweater.
A lot more skin covered,
But again, that's just sort of everyone has their own interpretations, and I think some of these are absolutely excellent. And I also love the giant paintbrushes.
Yes.
With sword hilts. If you look at Tojin.
So recently,
nice.
I've started painting my amiibo, and the detail I love is the little protective plastic coverings on the brush themselves.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Well, because even if you're defending against nightmares, we're not savages. We don't have to
keep them
spatter
nicely
everywhere.
shaped.
If you want accuracy in painting, you need to have a well-shaped brush.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have stragglies.
It just messes everything up.
Mm-hmm.
That is the technical term.
Yep.
Stragglies. Yes.
Just like 1,000,000 was the exact number.
Yes, we are very specific and exact in this podcast.
Yes.
But no, I really do love this style. So excellent work. So yeah, we'll have a link to that in the show notes if you want to go check it out yourself. Definitely, head over to Botanica Zoo's page because wow,
they do lots of great art.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving
also
on.
the Chinese translations.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Yep.
Okay, so moving on to Sanderson News. Again, I say this every time. It drives me crazy that these come out the day after we stream.
Mm-hmm.
But so this is a week old. But
he did it to avoid us and our hard-hitting journalism.
Indeed. Well, especially you know he's afraid because Brandon has now gone from Captain America to Obadiah Stane,
Yeah.
otherwise known as Ironmonger.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
He and I don't remember if we said it on the stream, but I've seen theories from a lot of people talking about how they suspected that's where he was going. So a lot of people called that one.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
it turned out
you
great.
just looked at the outfit and you're like,
Yep.
that looks totally like the guy from Iron Man.
Like,
just
jacket and tie were like identical.
Yes.
oh yeah, his costume
Or
person.
Bill's theory that
good
he was
job.
cosplaying as Howard Taylor.
I still say he was cosplaying as Howard Taylor. Oh no. I didn't say that. I said it was Howard Taylor trying to pretend to be
that's right.
Brandon
I got
and
it backwards.
infiltrate Dragonsteel.
It's the long con.
It's absolutely the Long Kong. Started this over a decade ago.
Oh.
Must have access to fortune, being able to predict.
Mhm. But his
And anime betrayals.
I will say Brandon's beard is coming in very nicely. It's very distinguished. It does destroy a lot of the old memes that said that were saying Pat Rothfuss and George R. Martin and Brandon Sanderson all had a pact that they wouldn't shave until they came out
They
with a
published
book.
it, yeah.
That they would shave every time they published a book, and so it shows beardy.
Well,
and
he's
then-
got like another
Maybe
month or
it's-
two, and then you can shave again. It's fine.
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe it's just since they last have completed a book. Because
that's right.
Brandon finished up 4 last year
because he's
and
been working
now
on Stormlight. That's fair. That's
It's
fair.
gonna be a minute.
Could be.
Anyway, I like the beard. It works for him. It looks good. And he said that will last until around fall at least. We'll see after that point.
I'm enjoying this heel turn by Brandon.
Stormlight 5 is at 56%, which is probably 58% now, but I can't say that definitively. Skyward Legacy is still at 28%. I did note they are now acknowledging the actual name of Yumi and the Nightmare Painter publicly because they hold off until the 11th of the month that it comes out so that people
It's
can
out
remain
now.
unspoiled if they'd like. But
Still annoys me they don't wait for the 16th.
Of course
just
it does.
thematically. Okay.
Yes. I like numbers.
Well, you must have loved Yumi.
There were
there was a lot
plenty
of
of
numbers.
numbers.
There were a lot of numbers.
I've got theories about numbers.
And also the Yumi bundles are available at dragonsteel.com. The Dragonsteel versions, because they actually have them in now. And so you can actually order them and get them after everyone who pledged gets theirs first.
That's when they'll ship. You can buy it,
Yep.
but you have to wait for everybody else's.
Yep.
The backers
But-
to all be shipped.
But
But they're there, so.
But they're on top of it this time. I mean, when they saw what was happening with Tress, they knew that they had to prep, and it's showing now, and I love that. But
They adapt.
But Brandon has said, if you're only going to read one of the secret projects, this is the one I recommend. And if you're only going to get one of the Dragonsteel editions, this is also the one to get. So, because this is a pretty book. Amy's got hers, because
Oh,
she's
you want me to
better
go
than
get
the
it?
rest of us. I mean, you're
Do you want me
welcome
to
to, but
Okay, I'll go grab it.
We can't stop you, literally. It'd take too much time and effort.
I think the cool thing is it's not just that this is a pretty book. This is an award-winningly pretty
yes,
book.
it's gorgeous.
Like
Absolutely gorgeous.
it
I
won,
remember when they first showed it off. This was the one I was like, oh, it's gonna look good
Yeah,
on a bookshelf.
It's
Yeah.
stunning. But
Yeah.
it won like big international competition for foiling applications.
Yes.
Like it's
I'm
it's
sorry.
gorgeous, but it's
It's
like
the best use of
specifically
foil.
gorgeous. Yeah.
I didn't know that was an award. Who awards this?
The Foilers Associate, the Guild.
The
They did a
Foilers
good
Guild.
job.
The guild, yes. GILD.
Nope. Wow. Okay, I'll give you that one. I'm mad at you, but I'll allow it. All of the Frugal Wizard books have now been shipped, and Yumi should be shipped by the end of the month. Speaking of guilt, though, remember the Golden Ticket campaign, which Brandon called it the Golden Ticket campaign this time. So,
Oh, did he?
I think
Oh, dear.
the Wonka estate is going to be coming for him. But
I don't know if you want to go up against Big Wonka.
no, the legally, what was it? Legally distinct,
Legally distinct
Legally
metallic
distinct
ticket.
metallic
Yeah.
ticket. Yeah. So that is still going on. Reminder: if you buy your Dragonsteel tickets before the end of July, you'll be entered into this competition
You
to
and a
get
+1. Yeah.
you and a +1 will be among the first 5 to go and have your books signed and personalized by Brandon at Dragonsteel. So definitely check that out. If you're coming, get it before then so that you can be entered into that.
Chance.
Or don't, because I'd like to win it myself. But Brandon has now acknowledged that the voters in his bad story ideas bracket may not actually be trolls, but may just prefer some of the bad stories. So that's a good thing. Also, Brandon will be at Tampa Bay Comic Con, and if you want to get a ticket to his signing there, each morning they'll have the tickets at his booth, but those do go fast. So
go
if
fast.
you want to go to one of the signings, get there the morning of early and get those, and rush over there and get those. Make sure you're in line for that. And also, Brandon has said he's not going full Brandolph, and I just have to acknowledge that the name Brandolph is amazing.
It's just right there. It's so close.
It's perfect. So, all right.
Not going full Brandolph yet.
Yeah. Well, he needs more gray, he said.
Not
So,
distinguished enough.
So maybe in a decade or so.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on how stressful his kids are around it.
Once we hit Stormlight 7 or 8, then he'll be able to let himself go.
Indeed.
In terms of facial hair.
But apparently, I think he said his wife does like the beard, so who knows how long it'll stick around. All right, so let's move.
BYU, because he teaches at BYU, and BYU has a no beard policy. So
that's why he said it'll stick through fall.
That's why
because
it'll
he teaches
be to the fall.
He teaches in January.
So it will have to leave in the fall.
Yeah.
Fair point.
I know some people at BYU who, during COVID, when everyone was wearing masks, they grew beards.
Yes.
But then once masks weren't a thing anymore, everyone had to shave.
Or you have to get your little card to say, yes, it's a medical thing that I'm allowed to not have to shave every day.
I have a medical condition.
I wonder if Brandon could get a beard card that says he has a medical condition. He's an author.
The fans.
Judging by most authors, you could convince me it might be a medical condition, or at least a job requirement.
Yeah.
So, all right, should we dive into the red strings tied across the pin boards? And you don't have to hold your breath.
Not that. Okay.
No, there's air in the cognitive realm.
Right, but there also is breath in this story, or is there?
I don't think there is.
I think that I'm already starting to think this was a mistake.
We'll get to it.
Okay, so I think the first point, we're talking about all the Cosmere connections. I think the most obvious one is that Hoyd is clearly talking to a Rasharan audience. There are several terms that he uses referring to them. He talks about chulls. He talks about the grain that you have here. He uses the words Rasharan a lot. So obviously Hoyd is talking to people on Roshar.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying to figure out, do we know? Obviously it takes place in the future from Stormlight 4 because he has design. He talks about stuff that happened at the very, very end of Stormlight 4 because he mentions how he's had memories stolen and he didn't like that. And so that's why he created this security system that ended up locking him in time. But,
I've heard the theory that it might be
Sigil.
Sigil, yeah, that it might be him.
Yeah, because that's who I said I think it is.
Yeah.
Which would make sense why this comes right before the Sunlit Man, because we know that the Sunlit Man is going to be Sigil.
Yeah.
So,
but okay, one potential counterpoint to that. Do we know if Sigil has been to the Reshi Isles or not?
I mean, he's well versed in what's going on.
He's pretty traveled.
Yeah, he's aware.
Also,
I don't know a specific.
Also, whatever's going on, this place feels a little further in the future. We don't know what's happening in book 5 or any books after that.
So.
They developed spaceflight.
Yeah. But the reason I ask is because at one point, Hoyd specifically says, if you've been to the Reshi Isles,
right,
the beaches there are real hot, and when you walk on the sand, it burns your feet. similar
That's
to
right. I
this
forgot about
stone.
that line.
So
Yeah.
I think like if Sigzil has been to the Reshi Isles before, he's out.
Honestly, based on the way the terminology, the way he speaks, it seems like he's actually talking to a group. That's how I picture. I feel like while it's not a Hoyd story, not a performance, he is speaking to a large group of people, or at least multiple people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A plurality of
Yes, a plurality of people.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's interesting that that's in there, that it's clear. Okay, we're talking Roshar.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I did find it interesting. If they're talking to people on Roshar, I feel like his immediate response would be to refer to the spirits as Spren.
Mhm.
Like I just feel like that would be the natural, or at least make the comparison. I don't think he ever said they're like Spren, which I
Nope.
found interesting.
You
I
know,
think
I'm thinking of Lost Metal, and at the end of Lost Metal, people theorize that Milan is going to visit what might be refugees from Roshar, potentially from the peaks,
Okay.
the Unkalaki.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what if Hoyd is there, and this is a story he might be telling to their children? Thus, they wouldn't know about Spren maybe as well, but then again, they wouldn't know about the Reshi Isles then by
Right.
the same theory. Dang it!
Because he says if you've been to,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't have
Yeah.
been. But if they're talking to the Unkulaki themselves, then they could have been to the Reshi Isles. I don't know.
But they also would. Yeah, it's interesting because he does reference the what are they called? Like the non. Where's my notes? The Control F. Here we go. Most self-aware invested beings. And he says specifically Fae, Seons, or spirits. He doesn't actually call Spren.
True.
Hmm.
And he's basically talking about cognitive shadows of some type.
Yeah.
So,
but it's interesting that talking to a Rosharan audience, definitely he doesn't say, it's like those things that you know about.
Exactly, which you would assume they know about.
Yeah, and I think it works for not making you have to have read the rest of the Cosmere by not pointing at Spren that way. By giving it more vague terms and everything like that. It makes it more approachable for people who haven't read all the Stormlight Archive.
Here's an aluminum foil hat for you.
Oh dear.
What if something happens in the back half of the Stormlight Archive that Spren suddenly aren't common anymore?
Well, we do know there's splinters of honor and cultivation.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if there's some sort of rejoining of some kind, maybe
I don't think they would necessarily disappear because obviously design still exists. But
design exists. Are we talking? Have we mentioned Kingmaker? Are we allowed to talk about that?
Kingmaker, remind me.
The
preview
unpublished book
of
Dusk
2.
Oh, okay. We have talked about that a little bit. 6 of the Dusk 2. Yeah.
Like, dude's got a Spren.
True.
Definitely.
That's right. Spren guns. I forgot about shard guns.
Oh yeah. That's right.
So
shard blasters.
I think Spren are if something cataclysmic has happened to Spren and they are severely decreased in numbers, they definitely still are around.
That's true because he also does have a shard plate.
Yeah.
So it's not just the lower.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a bit odd.
Again,
that's all.
It was an aluminum foil hat, but it's just like when he makes such a clear point of showing this is a Rasharan audience, but he doesn't mention one of the most quintessentially Rasharan things.
Right.
Yeah.
So, anything that stood out to y'all, like just start throwing out ones that you noticed that you're like, ooh.
One of my favorites, actually, I noticed it in the preview chapters, was they're eating with my pawn sticks.
Yes.
Oh,
it's chopsticks, but it's my pawn sticks.
Isn't
which
that
are Rose Empire?
Yeah.
Is it Rose Empire or is that a? Yeah. I was just wondering because I don't know if that's just what they call it in Korea or something like that.
No, that it's the
That's what they-
Mypon
Yeah.
Okay.
like empire. Yeah.
Now
Okay.
that could be like him using the honorific Nimi, where
Right.
it's
Right.
he's trying to use a word that they might know.
True.
Yeah.
It's also not the only time we've seen the phrase "my pawn sticks," though. Like it's actually in Elantris.
Okay.
So like they're called my
Okay.
pawn sticks in multiple places in the Cosmere.
See, and I noticed the connection, but I also didn't know if that was just because I was culturally unaware of something from our world. So
Yeah, I don't know what the Korean word for chopsticks is.
I want to talk about something
Dear
specific.
Google.
The shroud.
okay.
So it is this inky black smoke.
Yes.
That sounds very similar to Nightblood.
It sounds very similar to Nightblood. It also sounds very similar to
The Midnight Essence.
Mm-hmm.
Midnight Essence. It also sounds similar to the mists around the Well of Ascension.
Oh.
Not the Well of Ascension.
No, Akina. Or
The island.
No, I'm thinking the mists around when they went up into the islands to find the Well of Ascension, and then there were actually Mr. I think it was in the epigraphs they talked about it. Basically, it's ruins gaseous form.
the
Yeah.
deep.
Oh.
The reason I
or-
the reason I bring up Nightblood specifically, in both cases, it's being caused by some sort of awakened entity,
Mm.
Mhm.
and it's
True.
it's leaking some form of investiture, and
Uh-huh.
it both comes out as this inky
That's a
black
good
smoke.
comparison, actually. Now that I think about it,
In fact, to expand on that further, it's not just investiture from an awakened thing leaking black smoke. It's the investiture of souls
yeah,
leaking black
Mhm.
smoke.
it's the investiture of a thing that consumes souls and is leaking. Black. Yeah,
Which is exactly what that machine is.
yeah. Nightblood has a
it-
brother
A really creepy. Well, not that Nightblood isn't.
because
creepy, but-
Nightblood's a shining example of puppy
No,
dogs. and-
Nightblood
and
is a cute little
roses.
pup. Nightblood is a cute little puppy with too many mouths,
It's fine.
and the machine is the dummy robot from Iron Man. We've been over this.
Oh boy,
Oh,
Brandon's
but
gonna sue
side
us.
note. So I looked up chopsticks in Korean, and I'm gonna slaughter how to say it, but it's joskgalag, something like that. So
Okay.
it's
Not my
It's
pun.
not my pun.
So it's not my pun. All right.
It's not my pun, and I am so sorry if you speak Korean, and I totally slaughtered that word. I tried. I have no idea how I was supposed to say that. So, yeah, we're just
An
gonna close
effort
that
was
window.
made.
I tried.
But no, there's something weird going on with that. I don't really know. I don't really have anything I could really expand upon the idea, but
No, I like that because again, it is an awakened device that consumes souls,
Mm-hmm.
and oh gosh, this is awful, but I gotta say it. It's kind of like when you eat too fast and you burp because you swallow air. It's soul belches. I know it's an awful thought, but it's just like because that's kind of what Brandon has said is like you can only consume and hold so much investiture at once, and then it starts to leak off. Kind of like kind of like humans who breathe in stormlight, they leak it. It's the same kind of thing, just gross.
I didn't picture it as belches. I was thinking more like exhaust fumes of
Fair enough.
investiture.
That seems more fitting with the machine, but they both could work as ideas. Yes.
no, it's interesting because there's no signal that what they're consuming is actually breath.
No, it's
machine.
Well,
No,
breaths are a very specific thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't
But-
have breaths because they're not from
They're not native
Malthus.
Malthians.
Yeah.
No, but so we've seen with Hoyd, we know from Rhythm of War that Hoyd is somehow using breaths to store memory, similar to how Farukamis store memory in a
Mhm.
copper mine.
Right.
It would bear some sort of similarity to be able to say that if you have the right type of investiture, you could do something similar to Awakening, maybe with a different type of investiture.
I mean, I'm sure there's a way to hack Awakening. Like
Yeah.
there must be a way to convert like Stormlight to a material that you can use to awaken objects.
Well, I mean,
So-
we know that that Vasher has been using Stormlight to supplement his
to sustain himself.
sustain himself.
Yeah.
You know, as a breath normally would. So
Right.
yeah, you're there's got to be
There's a
some
way
way
to convert
to
it one
convert
way or
it
the other.
somehow. I like
It's
what
It's like a
Lonsuna
catalytic converter, but for investiture.
I like what Lonsuna Krogan says in chat. It says
Hi, Doug.
the machine is when the intent is just too vague. Nightblood is almost too specific.
Yeah.
And so it's again, awakening is such a fascinating science that can go wrong so easily.
Well, it's because you're trying to give consciousness to something that doesn't
Mhm.
understand a concept. And so
Yeah.
with Nightblood, the problem is they say destroy evil. Well, it has no concept of evil or even time or any of the things that we need to even understand what evil is. So what does a really, cool looking sword have a chance at doing?
Mhm.
This machine is similar. It was given, hey, we need you to stack rocks and use that energy to then
Keep
make
stacking rocks.
yeah, to
Suck in
keep stacking
souls.
rocks and supplement these and it's like that's too complicated. It can't
Uh-huh.
like we're struggling with that with the what little AI technology we have now. Like think of self-driving cars, for example. Like it has to take in all this information and make the right decision. Now, that's great when everything's, going hunky-dory, but if suddenly something goes wrong, like let's say the car suddenly
Mhm.
has to make a decision, do I run into the car in front of me or do I veer off and maybe hit a pedestrian on the side? And suddenly you have a machine that's having to make an ethical question. A machine's not capable of making an ethical question. It doesn't understand ethics.
Yeah,
And so it's an issue.
Yeah, I made the comparison to the movie I, Robot last week, and that's why Will Smith's character hates robots is because there was a robot that came and could have saved either him or a young girl. He had a better chance to survive because his life signs were stronger, and it saved him. And he was just like, no. A human would have known better, and because she had potential, she like there was all sorts of other non mathematical aspects that would have gone into that
same way
choice.
that a machine can't quantify that. There's too many different details and different things like that.
Which that's the problem with automation is automation's awesome, it's powerful, but it's also very stupid.
Yeah.
It's very specific. You have to give it a task and it does that task, and that's what it does, and it does it really good.
And if it gets too smart, then you end up with the Matrix instead, and that's also terrifying.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, when I was reading this, I was immediately like, "Oh, there's a machine. Oh, okay. This is just an allegory for Brandon writing versus AI. Like this is exactly what's happening right now." And
Until you remember that Brandon wrote this before.
before tied into fortune, you guys. He knows.
Well, no, I think it's a lot cooler than that. I mean, look, we've been writing stories, we being humans. I've been writing stories about stuff like this. I mean, the first one I can think of is John Henry and the tale versus him versus the machine. But more specifically, I mean, Isaac Asimov was writing this 50 years ago. Like we've
Longer,
been considering
70.
this issue for a while. I didn't know the term speculative fiction until Brandon. And what I think we're seeing here is actually Brandon sort of really starting to lean into the fact that he writes speculative fiction, not fantasy, because the more he does, the closer it gets to sci-fi with a little bit of magic. But sci-fi and fantasy are at least cousins, where it's just there's some big lie that you need to make either setting work. And what the source of the lie is to make it work, just in sci-fi, it's a technology, in fantasy, it's a magic. And if it's Brandon, it's like, it's both.
Yeah, man. Or is a sucker's choice.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. It's just very interesting that now it's all the other thing that's interesting is in all three of the secret projects, it's been a future story from where he normally tells his stories.
I mean, it will be all four.
Yeah. And so it's interesting. Most people, to avoid having to deal with oh, I could cause some discontinuities, might go to the past. Brandon goes to the future of his stories.
Well, I mean, he
and
also
hides it there.
we also know that he's got people doing continuity, and he has a huge wiki of his
Yeah.
own and things. So he's got ways to go.
Mhm.
Okay, and he can
Karen
refer back
Ostrom
to
is
it.
a
Thanks, Karen.
godsend.
Yeah.
He has a person for that. So yeah,
And someday I
Comes
want to
future.
peek at that wiki. That's my impossible dream right there.
just give me a flash drive in 10 minutes. Fine.
It's got to be sizable.
No,
But
Yeah,
no,
I hope
I
you'd
just-
be able to download it in 10 minutes.
no.
But I just think it's interesting that most people would avoid doing that, because if you tell a future story, you have to do a lot of work to avoid spoiling things
Mhm.
for the big stories you're telling. Whereas if you do a past story, you just got to take a lot of care to not cause a discontinuity.
Mhm.
And most authors would prefer to, I'm going to try and prevent a discontinuity. I don't want to try and lock myself into having issues going forward. But
I think
Brandon's
another
such a good outliner that he says,
Prequels
it
are
also-
very popular.
I think it also helps that he's writing on different worlds. He's not writing on
Mhm.
Roshar. He's not
Yeah.
writing on
Yeah.
Scadrial. He's not writing. He's writing on places where we have not had
Yep.
any experiences yet, and so they are less directly affected or affecting
Mhm.
the main canon worlds that we are seeing a lot more of. And so he doesn't have to worry about exactly what happened on Roshar in this time, because maybe Hoyt hasn't been back. We don't know. And so he can do it a little bit easier compared to if he's writing something from era 4 of Mistborn, then he's going to be giving away big things versus he's doing it on Lumar or what is this world called?
Komashi?
Kimoshi? Is it? Shoot.
Komashi, I think.
Komashi. I should know these names by now, but I don't.
Komashi. Mhm.
Anyway, so yeah, so he's doing it on worlds that are not as they're connected, but they're not as directly affecting it. So
Mhm.
yeah,
makes it
they're a
easier.
little more backwater, a little
Right.
out of the way in terms of Cosmere terms.
Yep.
but nobody else has had soap operas, so
Or instant noodles.
yeah, and
Backwater
instant
doesn't
noodles
necessarily mean uncivilized, just out of the way.
out of the way.
I do love, because Brandon has made references to Hoyd's favorite food being instant noodles for years now. And so I love that he finally actually created a world that has instant noodles. And I feel so bad because Hoyd, who loves instant noodles, has been frozen for
whole
3
time.
years in a noodle shop.
Though, for most of that time when he was frozen, it was Design doing the cooking, and that was atrocious for the most part.
Mhm.
It was only the recent history where she's actually figured out how to make palatable food.
Mhm.
Which
Sci-
you
and-
mean?
but-
yeah,
and done it in the most machine way possible. Like whenever you see those like simulations, like we're gonna see if this robot can figure out how to bowl,
We're going to
And-
eliminate everything.
and it just tries random stuff, and it's like, okay, we got to figure out how to reward and punish for bad
Mhm.
results. And that's how she did it. She did it mathematically.
Yeah.
and you have to wonder how she stayed in business that whole time. Either she had a really big nest egg, or the
She's
people were there
endearing.
for, or the people were there for the
She's
visuals
hot.
too.
And she
She's
doesn't
got
need to
Kirk
eat.
Cosine. I love that line so much.
I love Design so much.
My favorite
Hoyd
line as far
deserves
as-
her.
he raised her. Like this is like she's learned all his bad habits.
Mhm. So he's got no one to blame but himself.
It's endearing.
It is. No, but like just even like her thing with when she realizes that Painter is attracted to Yumi, and she's like, what is wrong? Like, you're not staring at my butt. Like what
You
is-"
used to
he's
do
like,
that. What happened?
it's
She's
like,
very analytical about it.
yeah. There's no emotion behind it. It's just like this what's
What is
wrong?
this? Why is it
And
different?
Your behavior has changed. Let's analyze this. Like,
Yes.
He's like, what? Wait, you knew about that? Everyone knew about that. What are you talking about?
I thought I was. She's like, no. I noticed. I noticed that you were looking.
Brandon's basically invented magical robots without having robots, but she behaves like your stereotypical comedic robot in
Mhm.
in science fiction.
Kind of how it makes me think of Edie a little bit in Mass Effect.
A little bit,
A little bit.
because she's also hot. And so
Yeah.
there's a Mass
Sassy and
Effect reference for you, Doug. I hope you enjoy.
I like it when
I was
humans
glad
are
to
on their
help.
knees.
Yeah. Didn't
So
even know
is
I
it
was supposed to do that.
is his name really Doug, or is this just Doug?
Oh no,
from
his name is
Tress?
Doug.
Okay,
No,
I wasn't sure if this was a
Hi,
Tress
Doug.
Doug or.
Lonsuno Krogan is my Doug. He's
Aw.
yeah,
Nice shout out.
he's one of my top Patreon supporters, and
Awesome.
he's been a subscriber on my channel for years, and yeah, he's a really cool guy. So, and he really likes Mass Effect.
There you go. Yeah, and you should totally wear a shirt that says Doug number blah 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 if you go to DragonStillCon.
I'm gonna be making shirts for that. You can buy them at my booth.
Just do that. Go buy his
Oh, wait.
shirts. Yeah.
I'm gonna be making shirts for that. You can buy them at my booth.
Yeah. So do that. Don't. Yeah. Anyway.
I mean,
Sorry, Steve.
make your own stuff, but also
If
I'm gonna
want,
have
you
it
can
if
always
you
buy
want
one,
it.
I also would like to talk about the fact that when we get to the other planet, we find out Shodell are on it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. What?
So I will fully admit I hadn't looked much into Shodell, and so I didn't catch that the four-armed people were Shodell. That was a gap in my knowledge.
Mm.
But this is only their second canon appearance. The first one being at the end of the
Lost Metal.
Lost Metal.
Right.
Yeah.
So
They keep showing up.
I mean,
Makes
well,
me feel like
they-
we're about to have something with them.
okay,
They're
we've
real
gotten
important.
we did have Uli Da named, but Shodell as a mortal race
Right.
or
Yeah.
physical race
on screen.
Yes.
Mhm.
But yeah, so it's we've got a planet. What is it? Utol?
Utol.
Utol?
With where the U and the T are both capitalized, which is
Mhm.
interesting because normally when he does that, there's like a hyphen or an apostrophe
Space
or
or
something.
something.
So
Yeah,
there's something that it's some new naming convention.
but it also does follow the Shodell monosyllabic to, boom boom
Mhm.
naming convention of
Yeah.
emphasized.
Yeah.
Ooh,
So
Uli da.
Uli Da
Mhm.
Shodell. I can't remember what the guy at the end of Lost Metal is.
I don't know. Does he get a name?
I don't think
Oh,
he has a
he does.
name.
I thought I saw it in the copper mine, but
I don't remember if he does. I'm sorry if he does.
I have it open right now.
I do too.
Somebody will find
John
it.
John
yeah.
Venn.
John Venn.
Okay.
But anyway, so from one alien race to another, Masaka is a sleepless,
Yeah.
and she likes cute things.
And she's trying so hard to be
Cute
human.
things.
Cute
Yes.
things.
And Yumi reminds her of a cute bunny.
Mhm.
No, like I said, she reminds me of a magical non-human Wednesday Addams.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
So, which is why I
Also
actually
when
kind of
yeah.
picture her when I pictured her in a sweater. I pictured kind of like a Beetlejuice pattern sweater, like a black and white stripes type thing.
I just
But-
pictured big chunky sweater. What was black.
Giant poofy black sweater.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so we've got the Sleepless on here. What other connections do we have? There's so many. Like it's just rich with them.
I'm kicking myself for not rereading again, but I
Oh,
was busy, so
did-
yeah.
When Design is trying to figure out what Yumi is, she's like, okay, you're invested more even than an Awakened. You're like
Hmm.
an Elantrian.
Well, she says you're returned level. No,
Yeah.
you're more than returned
Yeah.
level. You're a Lantrian level.
Which that's the first time we get a nice comparison.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. We
So
get
we
it.
have a scale, kind of.
We're working on it.
So that
Oh,
makes the
for
whole
those of
ending
us
of
who
Lost
keep
Metal
track of these
even
things.
more interesting because it's like, oh, so yeah.
And
she's running around.
somehow
Yeah.
Shai was able to forge that.
I know. She's
Uh-huh.
Not
so
on her
good.
planet.
I'm so proud of her.
I mean,
Now being
she had
able to
really good ink.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, she did. Well, and
No,
also
yeah, she had the good stuff, but at the same time, it's just this moment. Every time something's like, oh, that's the expensive stuff.
Mhm.
If there's anything mortals are good at doing, it's figuring out a way to make something that is very rare become less rare over
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
And
I mean,
so,
we've now seen two.
yeah,
One artificially become an Elantrian with Shai,
Uh-huh.
but Hoyd is now an Elantrian. Like,
Yes.
yeah. Well,
Well,
and then
that
on
even
top of
didn't
it,
use the good stuff.
Well, and it
No.
makes sense the way that Shai did it because she rewrote her past.
Right.
it was probably easier for her simply because she was born on Cell,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
and so she could have conceivably been born in Erelon and become an Elantrian.
Yeah.
But
it's just
it
like
shows how
with things-
powerful forgery really can be.
Oh
Yeah. Well, it's powerful for the exact same reason that bondsmithing is powerful. It's just that
Mhm.
forgery manipulates identity and bondsmithing manipulates connection.
Honestly, I think forgery is probably the closest thing that we'll get in the Cosmere to reverse time travel, because she rewrites her past. You know,
We,
like, because they've said several times you can only travel forward in time. You can only.
Mhm.
This is probably the closest thing we'll get to actually traveling backwards in time.
Yeah. In the Cosmere RPG that was made out, I played with a couple of different people, and that was a fan made system. We had somebody who was a forger, and I was like, man, he's probably going to have a hard time in fights, but oh boy, he did okay. Because he was able to just like, and now this club is a giant sword, or this thing is that. And it's just like, oh, I didn't think about that. You could just do that. Okay.
It takes a lot of preparation, but
But when you're prepared, it's really
Yeah.
useful. Yeah.
No, there's some very interesting things because she's able to forge and do it not like, forget not even in her own lands. Like, she was literally on another planet and she was able to forge. And it just with things like the fact that aluminum is no longer this rare element that has
Mhm.
huge cosmeric
yeah.
implications, where suddenly everyone can have aluminum foil hats and
Mhm.
make themselves immune from certain manipulations and,
And-
all this
and-
other stuff.
And that change happens between books, you know, because it's like super rare in Alloy of Law, and by the time we get to Shadows of Self and
Bands of Morning.
Bands of Morning, it's common because
Well, it was still
I mean,
still
it's
rare
still
in
still
there.
expensive.
sorry,
but
but it's available.
You
Yeah.
could get
Yeah.
it, yeah.
Well,
And
which
then-
I mean, that does mirror real world aluminum,
Mhm.
because it was sort of like
Mhm.
that, where suddenly someone figured out, I forget the name of the process, but where that suddenly
Is it
they could.
electrolysis or?
It might be
I
something.
think it was something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Point was, someone figured out how to do it, and suddenly it's like, oh, well, now we can take this really common thing and make aluminum, and suddenly aluminum is cheap enough that we use it for soda cans now.
Mhm.
Um,
Or to wrap our leftovers in.
yeah.
When the Washington Monument was first constructed, aluminum was the rare metal, and so the top of the Washington Monument actually is plated in aluminum.
Huh.
No, and
That's
so,
pretty cool.
but
You
so
know.
now let's think. If you do it, the whole idea, this is purified door, like, and that's what the stuff that we saw in Lost Metal was. Well, we know the cognitive realm over on Cell is just, it's teeming with, you know, these storms, but when they when the technology starts showing up, and we know that specifically uh the Ghost Bloods are like, that was one of the places that Kelsier was like, let's find allies then.
Mhm.
And he specifically said, you know, Shy's people. So if they start going over there, they might be able to start getting some purified door once they start working out the kinks and having actual, you know,
Mhm.
scholars and scientists trying to figure this stuff out.
Mm.
And we could start seeing forgery on some very different levels, especially if Shy wakes up from whatever she's doing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that was one of my big unanswered questions at the end of Lost Metals. Like, how are they going to get her back?
Yeah.
When do we get a Mistborn Secret History for Era 2 and figure all that out?
But the problem is, Mistborn Secret History, the first one, we all thought was going to explain, oh, how did Kelsier get a body? And then he's like, I'm going to
Nothing.
tell a completely different story, answer none of your questions, and only give you different answers to questions you didn't know you had, and none of the answers you wanted.
More questions.
And so Secret History 2, it's going to be like, hey, do you want to find out what what Spook did last Tuesday? No, yes, maybe.
Sure.
And it's like,
I'll
tough.
take it.
We're gonna tell you what Milan was doing. Son of a gun.
I guess I'll just be happy.
I also wanted to know that.
I didn't know I wanted to know that, but now I do.
Now I do, yeah.
Well, I'm also wondering, like, what Dan Wells is going to start doing, because he's acting as Brandon's second brain.
I'm really hoping he's doing Threnody stuff, because that's
I think he's currently working on something like a far off corner, but Threnody could be.
It'd be really fun, Threnody.
Because Brandon said he found a corner of the Cosmere that Dan could play in or something, and I'm just like, oh no. I just know that anytime Brandon talks about something he and Dan are writing together in his State of the Sanderson, it always ends in getting weirder.
Yeah.
So.
No, the speaking of Ghost Bloods and Scadrial, Iron 7 way station.
Yes.
Where was that mentioned? You can remind me.
That's where Hoyd and Design escaped to when they stole a ship.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
That's the plan.
That's the plan.
Oh, right.
Go.
And probably happens because we're talking about previous.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it implies the time frame of the story. The Scadrians have space travel enough that they have way stations. And I love the idea it's Iron 7, because we know back in Ellendale, and in what was the name of the main city before Ellendale? Luthadel. I couldn't think of it for some reason. Like it was the Iron Gate, the Steel Gate, like it was all based around the metals. And so it would make sense that would get scaled up on some way when they start traveling the stars. And so it's just this idea, Iron 7.
It also could be consider what iron does allomantically.
Pull.
Where it pulls. You could technically possibly use iron to create artificial gravity. And so they're naming space stations after the technology that is used on those stations.
Well, but Steve, it's not like they have a technology that lets them let objects suddenly use allomancy. That's not a thing they've done yet.
That would be wacky.
I just realized I want a TV series that's basically Deep Space Nine in the Cosmere. I would love that. And on that note, we should probably take our break now. Yeah. So
all I know is they're really going to need to workshop that name, because Iron 7 way station just doesn't have the same ring to it.
Okay.
And on that note, we'll see you all in a few minutes. And we're back. So let's continue that. Steve. Oh no, Steve landed on the wrong planet. No. So let's talk a little bit about what's it called? I was thinking something. Right, virtuosity.
Ooh.
So there's all sorts of stuff we could speculate about, because we got the name of yet another shard. I think we're only missing one at this point. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So virtuosity. This we know that she did. Do we know if it's a he or she? Did we get?
I think it's
I believe
she.
Okay.
She
splintered herself.
And she splintered herself. Beyond that, we don't know how or why, because we know that Endowment splinters bits of herself off to bestow breaths and to create returned. But we don't know.
There's a difference between creating splinters and being splintered.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what do we think it means? What does it mean?
Well, there's this crazy idea that maybe she did it as a preventative measure against odium.
So I don't
like it.
I
But
think
that came
the timeline
to mind.
doesn't work for that.
Well, not just that. Odium is coming for to splinter them. So if you do it to yourself, then
it's a total artist move. Like, no, I'm going to do it before you can do it to me. You
can't fire me. I quit.
I don't know. It was just, I was spitballing. It came to me.
No, well, my first thought when we got that line with the preview chapters and we saw what we saw what Yumi was doing with the spirits, I thought, oh, maybe this is like on a grander scale that she splintered herself and she made these two worlds, one of light, one of dark. There's, they're opposite. And it scales down. We see that Yumi's doing that on a smaller scale whenever she gets these spirits to split. I'm like, oh, that's gonna be good. And then the book happened. I'm like, oh, that's
I'm
not
wrong.
even close. It even a little bit. I do think on some level, everything surrounds art in this world.
Yes.
And it makes me think that
virtuosity makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I keep going back to like this idea of like the artist, like what is the true final art? Like I'm going to do something magical with my death, and like because the whole point is it's every shard takes everything to the highest extreme what it is. And I'm like, okay, what's the most insane artist thing to do? And I'm like, okay, that's the most insane artistic thing to do. And so part of me wonders if something like that's going on, is like, this is my masterpiece.
So like a Van Gogh's ear type thing, or
yeah, something like that.
Artists are notoriously self-destructive.
Yeah.
Huh. I don't know.
And so that's all I can come up with, because I was convinced we were going to get more information about this because he put it in the preview chapter, and then like that's it. That's the only time we hear about this.
Yeah. It could also be that this could be the origin of the Hijo, the spirits.
Yeah. But there's definitely something going on there, because you don't just get Elantrians out of nowhere.
Well, in each instance though of where we've gotten these sort of spirit type things, where we have the Hijo, where we have the Spren, where we have the Scions, where we have the Shades, all of them involve a splintered shard.
Yeah, that's because the Elantrians, it's
the Elantrians, it's devotion and dominion. You have the Scions and Scales.
They're splintered, and we know with endowment, she's literally splintering herself to make the returned.
Well, the returned are something else, though. I feel, because that's those are cognitive shadows, though, as well.
Yeah, but she's splintering
they're
herself
invested
to make it
with
right.
Yeah.
But like the Shades,
is ambition.
Is ambition. Virtuosity would fit with the Hijo.
Yeah, I mean, we know that investiture, when left alone, will want to coalesce, and coalesced investiture will want to gain self-awareness.
Yes.
So, like, it makes perfect sense.
Well, we also know that someone with already self-awareness who is highly invested will also last.
Spur that, yeah.
So, is Yumi's one of 14 Hijo, right?
Yes.
Yes,
a maximum of 16.
Oh, is that what the phrase
is? But at the moment, 14.
14. Because I was wondering, I was like, wait, where'd the other two go? Because 16's the thing. So, but I wonder.
But each planet has their own numbers that matter as well. Because 10 is big in the Rosharan system.
Yeah.
9 and 10. Because 9 is Odium's number.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
So what number do you think is Virtuosity's?
13.
Is it for sure 13? Because I also found evidence for 12 and 11.
So this is I've come prepared.
Jordan's got
March
receipts.
22nd, 2022. Neon Borealis, which is a great name. The story of Yumi and the Night Painter uses the Fibonacci sequence several times as recurring elements related to art and the golden ratio. Given that nightmares need over a dozen feedings to materialize, and the number 13 features heavily in Yumi's rituals, would you say 13 is related to virtuosity, the same as 16 to preservation and 10 to honor? Brandon, wow, good guess. But not a confirmation. But
no, but in the Fibonacci sequence, you got 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. So it would make sense.
Well, and the over a dozen feedings is also maybe a little telling.
Though I also found...
and there are 13 other girls besides...
13 other Yokihijo. There are 13 ritual prayers. She follows the Fibonacci sequence in the ritual bathing.
Yep.
And... yeah, so 13 is definitely in many places. But also, at the end of the ritual bathing, she holds her breath for 144 seconds,
Which is 12 by
specifically
12.
144, which is 12 squared.
Mm-hmm.
And a week on their world is 11 days.
True.
So there are multiple numbers that are significant in
Mhm.
that range. And I'm curious as to why that is.
Yeah. I'm leaning more towards Jordan being right and it being 13, but
Yeah.
those numbers are absolutely significant. Just because of the explicit mention of the Fibonacci sequence in the books, and yeah.
There was one more question that was asked immediately after this, not related to numbers, but the name virtuosity, asked by Joffwoo. Anyone who
Joffwoo.
anyone who follows the Cosmere subreddit knows
He's really
Joffwoo.
nice.
Can
He
you
is really
elaborate
nice.
why you picked the name virtuosity? As in, what does it mean to you and how does it fit in the Cosmere? Brandon. So virtuosity is specifically related to artistic talent and artistic sense. I was actually debating between artistry and virtuosity, and I settled on virtuosity after a decently long debate. It's one of the reasons I haven't canonized this one yet. It's the last big hole. I know there is one I haven't revealed that you guys kind of know what that one's general intent is, so the last big one to reveal, as I believe. I think there is only one, and I think you know part of that one. Maybe I am wrong. I'll have to go back and see. It's hard to remember what you guys know and what you don't know sometimes. I wanted to get this one into the Cosmere so that we basically have all 16 now. The big decision was, what do I call them? And at the end, virtuosity just rang to me the same way odium did. And so I picked that one. This is the shard of artistic intent and artistic talent and artistic appreciation.
In regards to him saying he doesn't know what we know, that's because there are so many things that we know, and some of them aren't true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Well, and even like his staff doesn't know what we know. Because I remember when we had Isaac on,
That's right.
I can't remember what it was. I just remember we revealed we knew something about one of the eras of
that's right.
It was the cartoons that
the comic, yeah, the
comic
comics.
books
Comic
that would
books.
be coming in era 3.
He got a deer in
Missed
the
one.
headlights
Like,
look
oh,
when we
no.
mentioned it. That was,
Yeah, and we're like, he said that. And he's like, okay, as long as that's public knowledge. Like,
Yeah.
you can tell he's sort of like, oh no, what's happening? What's happening?
Cut the string.
I still really hope that the first ones were based on drafts that were made by Wayne. Either that or by Max.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Maxilium.
Because he did draw pictures.
Yes.
So we do have that one remaining unnamed shard,
Yes.
Mhm.
but it's the one that was hiding,
Yeah.
The one that people are
the-
calling the survival shard.
the survival shard. But it's also been teased as wisdom because
Uh-huh.
it was hiding, but then that wasn't like the right course.
We know the name. I've been over this. It's necessity. Because invention exists, so there must be the mother of invention somewhere.
Wouldn't
Oh,
the
man.
mother of invention be technically Adenalcium?
No,
Like, if-
it's necessity.
If
Necessity is
invention
the mother
came
of
You're
From-
killing the joke, Steve.
You just have to accept the joke.
No, the splinters of invention are nope. That would have to be the other way.
Yeah.
All right,
No, but joking aside, if it is some sort of like hiding and surviving wisdom, necessity would actually make a decent name
That's true.
for that.
Yeah. But like, yeah, I've thought pragmatism or
Yeah. It actually would be a good counterpoint to something like virtuosity, the idea of
or whimsy.
Oh,
yes. I still say mercy's the scariest of them all, but whimsy's up there.
Yeah.
Whimsy's just whatever pops into their head, let's do it and give it the power of a god.
right.
Yeah.
Like I'm picturing some Willy Wonka stuff going on.
And we will love it.
That's the second time I've mentioned Willy Wonka. What is that?
Does he appear after the third time?
Well, I did already say Beetlejuice once, so now we've got
True.
two. We've got two people waiting in the wings.
But no,
Oh,
it's just
man.
I do think it's going to be something along the lines of necessity
Mhm.
or pragmatism or something like that.
Let's talk a little bit about, and I forgot her name. Our
Actually,
Sleepless.
wait. I just had a thought on
Have
that.
your thought.
That actually would make pragmatism makes total sense why that would be the shard, and it would immediately start hiding, because if it knows Odium's on a rampage, what's the one thing Odium cannot have? Anything tempering it. That would be the most tempering of all the shards. Pragmatism would be.
Hmm.
And so it would say, I have got to hide because Odium's coming for me.
Hmm.
Yeah, I could see that.
Interesting.
I'll allow it.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about Misaka, who's our Sleepless.
Mm-hmm.
Because she seems very different from a lot of the Sleepless that we have seen in the
yes.
past.
She's new.
Yes,
Yep.
she is
She's
new.
pretty young.
Like she's young.
And she also seems to just sort of want to exist away from it. Like, she's just, don't leave me alone. Don't bother me. I just want to do my thing.
I'm figuring out what I want to do. I don't want my
like,
parents' rules and restrictions and how
but
they
it's also
do
like,
it. And
I won't bug you. Just leave me alone.
Well, she says something to the effect of, I'm tired of all the wars that are being fought in the Cosmere. And so she decided to disguise herself as a human. It implies the Sleepless are very involved in wars.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's also interesting, though, because in spite of trying to avoid wars, she is in essentially a combat position. She's a painter.
Yeah.
So she's a defensive wall.
Ironically, no, it's actually, and it's ironic for a bug person, she's an exterminator.
Wow.
Oh boy.
I believe I think Painter does compare them more to exterminators than
He does,
than like
yeah.
law enforcement.
Early on, he's like, yeah, it's a glorified exterminator, you know.
Yeah, the law enforcement are the Dream Watch, or at least the people who work for the Dream Watch.
I'm suddenly thinking of Ghostbusters. What are you guys, some sort of cosmonaut? No, we're exterminators. Someone saw a cockroach up on 12. That's got to be some cockroach.
Bite your face off.
It's gonna be a lot of cockroaches up on 12.
One of them was a spider, so
someone saw a Kremlin up on 12.
What are you, some kind of Cosmere knot?
Hey, he's the Cosmere knot. It's funny because you said
my volume
the thing.
good. I accidentally hit my volume.
You're fine.
The point wasn't worth it. The pointing effect wasn't worth it.
I thought it was great.
Oh man, guys, this is a juicy book.
Yeah,
and it makes me very happy. Like I said, this is absolutely my favorite of the so far 3 secret projects we've had.
I love the fact that for the very first time in this book, we get an on-screen visual of someone's spirit web.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That when Painter walks in and it's like looking at this like glowy thing, like, oh yeah, this is your spirit web, and it doesn't like what that is the thing that like everything is tied to, and we finally see it on screen, and then the Fabrial from Roshar that allows you to visualize the spirit web and more like crazy.
What?
Yeah. Well, and then design like pulling on things and stretching
it out,
stretching their
leash.
Yeah.
Leash.
Give it more slack.
Oh, so before I forget, have you guys watched much anime?
Yes.
Some, but
some. I'm just curious because I remember Brandon listed a couple different animes that were kind of references, and I haven't ever watched Hikaru no Go. But I've
heard of heard any of the things that he was talking
that
about.
One I had heard of, but that's because I'm a board gamer, and so.
And I was like,
True.
I don't know, I don't want to watch things about Go. But I
hear
did.
It's pretty good.
I hear that too. I've struggled to watch newer anime.
Yeah. I tend to need more explosions in my my anime
rather than just watching people play a board game.
Yeah.
With ghosts.
It's like, look, I understand it's probably pretty good. It's just
I actually have watched people play board games just like on YouTube, and so
but I did end up watching the Your Name movie, and that was pretty good. And so I can see where he got some of the little tropes and different things from that and some different ideas, but he definitely changed parts of it, and I like.
I mean, he even references this is like time travel, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what Your Name is.
It's time travel. Sorry, spoilers for that. Anyway.
Cool. All right. Well, any thoughts to bring up? We're going to have a final thoughts in a little bit, but any thoughts to bring up before we move on from the main discussion?
Let's see. Just fun, cool other things that I noticed.
And Chad, if you have anything, feel free to
I'm
speak
glad
up.
that he kept the onsen, the hot spring scenes like
Tasteful.
tasteful. Yeah.
I mean, it's Brandon.
Yeah.
And they make sense, which is usually in animes they're like a filler episode because they've caught up with the manga and they're like, what do we do?
They go through their Rolodex. It's like today is hot spring episode.
Okay.
Next day is random flashback.
We go to the beach this day. Yeah. So
Mhm.
no. But
Battle sequence that lasts for 5 episodes.
oh my goodness. Or we're just like screaming as we power up. Yeah.
Random
Dragon Ball Z
detour
right there.
to something that has absolutely nothing to do with the main plot while we wait for the manga to catch up.
So the Star Village and Naruto, son of a gun. Anyway,
Bleach. So much bleach. Anyway.
All right, well, let's move on to emails. We've got a couple this week, actually. The first one is from Jean-Marc, whose email we read last week and has once before written in and said, "Hey, SICS crew, might as well go for the email hat trick." And with that phrase, I was like, okay, well, I got to include this because that's basically like the homicidal hat trick that Vin got. A wild theory came to me while listening to your last episode that I thought I would share. What if Kamashi is located within the scar? I base this off of 2 points. First, the light from their sun is noted as being distinctly redder than usual, like in the scar. Second, their sister planet, Utol, is inhabited by Shodel. There's another theory that people have that the scar is caused by the spread of Fane life, and Shodel are a Fane race. Pretty tenuous, I admit, but fun to think about. Jean-Marc.
So where have we heard about Fane?
Okay, so the Fane, this is the only thing that it's the basically what's going on Yolen right now.
Yeah.
There's very, very little talk in canon stuff right now about the Fane, but we know that Shodel and dragons are Fane races.
Okay.
And that if you remember the what was it, the Wanderer, the Traveler short scene that we read where
Frost
Hoyd,
Traveler.
yeah, where Hoyd is on this planet where everything's red. That's because it's white.
White.
Yeah.
But that's because it's been taken over by the Fane.
Okay.
So that's really all
I
we've
didn't
got. Yeah.
remember hearing that, but that's okay.
Yeah. Again, there's not much about it in canon stuff just yet, and even the Traveler is not true canon.
Okay.
So.
Okay. That's
It's the other like ecosystem on Yolen, basically.
okay.
It seems kind of like Brandon's take on the Fae.
Yeah.
Except it's the Fane. Because dragon, like I said, dragons are a Fane race, and the Shodel are also Fane.
I could see that. Yeah.
But
that would make sense. I mean, I've long speculated that the scar or the red rip or the whatever everything else
Town Scar,
that is where Yolen was. Maybe is, probably was, in my opinion. And so with the propagation of the Shodel onto a different planet, it would make sense that would be nearby. And yeah, I didn't consider the big red sun, but that's a very good point.
Because from when other planets see it, many of the stars in the scar are red. I mean, it's called the Red Rip, like you said in Era 2.
Yeah.
It sounds plausible.
I really like the theory, actually. There's not a whole lot to it, but what there is to it, it's pretty solid.
Yeah. Good show.
Yeah. As far as a theory that literally cannot have much evidence going for it, just by the nature of it, it's decent.
But by the very same nature, there's not a lot of evidence that can go against it.
Yeah.
So
we call that unfalsifiable.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I liked it. I thought, and again, they used hat trick. I was like, well, I mean, I gotta let it in after that. Okay, we've got one more email, and this is from Aeon80. It says, "Hello, Cosmere Studies. I've been a fan of your podcast." Huh?
That is the Aeon that means hope.
Yes, it is.
Ironically.
I've been a fan of your podcast for a while and just wanted to put forth a theory to you all. It has to do with Marsh and what I think is starting to happen to him. I'll give my whole idea first, then break down why I think it's possible. I believe that through the cognitive perception of the people on Scadrial towards the figure of Iron Eyes, Marsh is manifesting more and more in the cognitive realm as the actual embodiment of death, all while keeping a material aspect in the physical realm, similar to how Sprin have an appearance in the physical realm but are fully manifested in the cognitive. I believe that as time goes on, Marsh will cease to just be an inquisitor who is viewed as death, but will actually become the Cosmere's version of the Grim Reaper, the avatar of death itself, Iron Eyes. My evidence. 1. Marsh's soul is spiked over 20 times, thus making his spiritual web susceptible to manipulation from outside sources. 2. Marsh has been viewed as a personification of a force of nature, in this case death, for over 300 years by millions of people on Scadrial, so the cognitive perception people have of him is very fixed. 3. Harmony has invested Marsh a number of times in order to meet people in the cognitive realm to act the part of Iron Eyes that people perceive him as, thus strengthening the cognitive perception of him even further. 4. We know that a connection between physical realm beings and cognitive realm entities. Sorry, I'm going to move this over to a different screen just so it's easier for me to read. We know that a connection between physical realm beings and cognitive realm entities can exist, a la Radiance. What I'm suggesting is that this is a connection between physical beings and a singular physical being's cognitive aspect. 5, at the end of the Lost Metal, we have 3 pieces of information about Marsh that have yet to be resolved or answered. A, he needs a new way to retain his immortality, as Adium is no longer a reliable source. B, he can walk around in public and no one notices him. He claims it's emotional allomancy, but Wax believes it's something else. And C, Chris is aware that other planets are acknowledging Marsh as Iron Eyes for reasons she doesn't understand. If I'm correct in my theory, then all these issues are resolved. As a being who's more manifested in the cognitive realm, Marsh would stop aging, or at least greatly slow in growing old, as Sprin and Seons do. As the personification of a force of nature, his presence would be like air and gravity, always present but barely noticed. And if he's becoming more and more a cognitive entity, then the idea of him could be spreading in the minds of other inhabitants of the Cosmere. Anyway, that's my theory. I believe that through people's beliefs and perceptions of him, Marsh is becoming the Cosmere's version of the Grim Reaper, Iron Eyes. I hope this all made sense and that you break it apart to find any flaws in my logic. Hope this email gets to you. I had to copy and paste the address onto my Gmail account. Hope you all have a good day and thank you for the content. Sincerely, Aeon80.
I love this theory. The only thing I don't like, but I actually think it strengthens the argument in a different way, is the theory of how he's staying invisible. I don't think it's due to, he's a force of nature. What I've been thinking he's been doing, I think one of his spikes or maybe a coin lets him store identity, or connection or something like that, that makes it so that people are less likely to notice him. Now, if he's doing stuff like storing identity, that would make him more susceptible
to the cognitive perception of him. Ooh.
And that's, well, and like they point out, their spirit web is torn to shreds by all the hemalurgic spikes. And so I really like this theory. I'd never considered it, but I really like it.
Yeah, I do too. It's one of those, like, again, there's a lot of stuff. This one, there's a lot more stuff to base it on, and clearly Aeon80 has done their homework.
I think it's really interesting. It's functionally, like, rather than a piece of investiture becoming self-aware and then becoming a spren or spirit or whatever, it's self-aware investiture in a soul, sort of dissipating and becoming more of a generalized concept. It's the reverse process of becoming of creating a spren. And that's really interesting to me.
Well, because basically what he's done, he already has a vessel, and through this hemalurgy, he's essentially kind of hollowed himself out for this. And like Jordan was saying, if he's storing identity or connection, again, he's hollowing himself out and leaving a place for this identity that people are creating for him to flow into.
Yeah. It's kind of also just interesting because I think just in the Discord we were making commentary about Santa Claus kind of being the similar to Wayne, and and like how he may become the future Santa Claus, and then it would be kind of interesting that here's Marsh becoming Death, the Grim Reaper, and so I'm wondering like what other metaphor, like
When were we getting the
mythological
Easter
beings
Bunny?
are we gonna get? Yeah.
Brandon's going to do his Rise of the Guardians version.
who's the
Hey, we're
Easter
back to
Bunny?
Hugh Jackman. So,
Oh my goodness.
But the other thing I like about this theory is it ties in the fact that Harmony has been investing Marsh with the power
Yeah.
to do stuff like this, and so it gives another bit of credence to the idea of this taking hold.
well, and he's also doing it in the cognitive realm.
Yeah. Well, and then on top of it, we know, for example, if we look at, say, the heralds, that they are specifically like whatever their madness is somehow tied to their cognitive aspect, because they seem to be breaking in opposite to their supposed virtues. Well, who foisted those virtues specifically upon each of those heralds? It was the people's belief that really like solidified that. And so there is, now we don't know the specific mechanics of it, or if because it could just be chicken or egg, like these are their virtues because that's what they were good at, right? But a couple of 1,000 years of belief can really start to wear on a cognitive being, and like we've said a couple times now, he's a little more open. That could start warping his own identity and connection enough to where he won't be able to escape those bonds, and he will become Death, Destroyer of Worlds.
He am become
with
Death,
Oppenheimer coming out. Good work. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
that's
I like that.
Really interesting.
It's a good theory. I like it a lot. Well, thank y'all for writing in. We love hearing from our listeners, so please keep sending in questions, theories, whatever. You can ask us about the Cosmere. You can drop us your ideas for topics that you'd like us to discuss during the show. And while you're at it, we would love to hear your feedback about how you think we're doing, as well as any other interesting theories that you might have about what's going on in the Cosmere, in whatever various corner of the Cosmere you have an idea from. You can send all questions and suggestions in a brief, concise email to cosmerestudies@gmail.com, and hopefully we'll read that as part of the show. You can also write us at the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, P.O. Box 970063, Orem, Utah 84097. Now, outside the podcast, we do have our own personal projects. Why don't we let our guest, Steve, start us off? Let us know where we can find you, what you got going on.
Well, I am available on all of the social medias at the Cosmere Knot. I'm most active on YouTube. That is where I am putting out weekly videos diving into various aspects of the Cosmere, as well as reviewing a whole bunch of the stuff that's coming out this year. So find me on YouTube at the Cosmere Knot, or youtube.com/read-and-find-out-Cosmere, and we can hang out. Yeah. I also have a Discord, which is really, really fun. Doug is on that Discord, and so you can talk with Doug and me.
I'm technically over there, but I haven't been too active. I'm sorry about that. Hopefully I can be more active, though, moving forward.
You're always invited. I additionally am going to be exhibiting at Dragonsteel Con this year, so come and hang out.
Glad you're doing that this year.
Yes.
I'm real excited. So come hang out at Dragonsteel Con with me.
I hope they put us in booths next to each other. That'd be fun.
I'm sure we could make that happen.
We could try.
Yeah. And I'm creating a lot of merchandise for Dragonsteel Con. And so if you would like early merchandise, support me on Patreon, because I will be sending out merchandise to patrons as it gets created. That is patreon.com/the Cosmere Knot, because I'm everywhere as at the Cosmere Knot.
Awesome. Amy, how about you?
Wow, voice. Thanks for doing that right then. My Facebook is Coincidence Cosplay and Props. My Twitter is at Coincidence Cosp, because my name is too long. My Instagram is Coincidence_Cosplay. My TikTok is at Coincidence Cosplay, all one giant word. And my website is www.coincidencecosplay.com. And I really need to just take the comment thing off, because I keep getting spam. It's fun. Yeah. But I'm going to be trying to make a sand crawler cover for like one of those like big foldable cart things like that you can crush down. So
Sandcrawler as in like Tatooine Jawas?
yeah, like a Jawa
Okay.
sand crawler.
Oh.
I'm just going to try and put a cover over that, and so me and my other Jawa friends at FanX can have a Jawa trading thing.
Nice.
So that's the goal. I'm also maybe going to compete in the contest if it doesn't kill me as Warrior Snow White. So yeah, we're gonna see if that happens. And I'm
Very
making
nice.
So
dice
is that going to
for-
kill you because of the effort, or because like the Warrior Snow White thing is going to be a little more literal than I think?
the effort. No, I'm
okay.
not gonna
I mean,
magically
maybe
like,
both.
yeah, maybe.
Cons get crazy.
No,
so.
my arm tendons won't like let me actually kill people with that arm, but that's fine. So yeah, but I otherwise making dice for Dragonsteel Con. It's Dragonsteel. I guess it's not Dragonsteel Con. And maybe other merchandise if I can figure out what to make. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing, and
Cool.
making lots of videos. And our podcast TikTok is past 1,000, so I can actually do live streams now. So
Nice.
if people
We did it.
We hit
Nice.
it.
we hit it, yeah. So if people have ideas for what to do on live stream, just let me know because I haven't done that on there. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Jordan, what about you?
You all can find me at youtube.com/splice stream. It rhymes with ice cream because I like ice cream and delicious. We're doing more amiibo content. Recently, we played Gravity Circuit, which is a Mega Man Zero style indie game that is so much fun. It's old school
It's
hard.
hard.
But it is so much fun, and it's only like $16 on Steam or $18 on Switch. So not a huge investment. It's not a huge risk. You should definitely play it.
Yeah, lots of fun.
And so, yeah. But other than that, been painting amiibo. Might be doing that on Tuesday. So looking forward to seeing y'all there.
Cool. And as for myself, I have another podcast with my friend Dylan. We talk about board games. It's called The Innkeeper's Table, and we do new episodes every other Friday. Our most recent episode, we did our top 3 games based on an IP, a previously existing intellectual property. And yes, at least one based on a Brandon book did make it through to that top 3, to our top 3 lists. Our next episode, we're going to be doing a game spotlight. If there's a game that you would like us to do a spotlight on in the future, let us know at innkeeperstablepodcast@gmail.com. For those of our listeners who want to support the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, but you can't become patrons, we understand that, but we'd love it if you just let your friends know about the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, to like and subscribe over on youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. To keep watching on YouTube to help boost our watch time to get us to the monetization point. And if you want to toss us a good review wherever you listen to us, we would love that. You can also head over to store.streamelements.com/Cosmere Studies to buy our merchandise. All right, guys, final thoughts.
I want to make a giant paintbrush.
Do it.
I'm gonna try. We're gonna see. That's the other.
I want Amy to make a giant paintbrush.
I'm just that crazy. It's fine.
My final thought. Oh, go ahead.
I'm excited for my video this Friday because I'm going to be diving into the Cosmere connections that we haven't talked about. So.
Oh, you were holding out on us?
Absolutely.
Steve.
No, we didn't hit all of my notes.
Fair enough.
Because I took very good notes.
Fair enough.
Good job.
No, that's totally fair. That's awesome.
So there will be more things that get talked about in my video this Friday. For those of you who would like to tune into that, that will be probably released at like 1:00 Mountain Time.
And if any of you haven't watched Steve's content, he's really good. You should definitely go check him out. He's got some great insights over there. And he also does
similar to this.
Yeah. He also does unboxings of all of the Year of Sanderson boxes. So, and
we have a good time over there.
And he has such gleeful enthusiasm that it's fun to watch. So, as for myself, I just got the digital files for some of the miniatures from the Stormlight Miniatures campaign. I don't have access to a resin printer, so I need to
Neither
find
do
someone with a resin
I.
printer. I have access to filament printers, but for
You don't wanna
minifigs like
do-
that, you want to do it
Yeah,
on
you
resin.
want-
So,
Mhm.
so if any of you may happen to have access to that, reach out. I'd love to hear it. Awesome. In addition to the live episodes of the show that stream on youtube.com/Cosmere Studies every 2 weeks on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, listeners can find our videos on YouTube or audio versions of the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and just about any other service that carries podcasts by searching for Cosmere Studies. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook under the profile at Cosmere Studies. For our next episode in 2 weeks, we are going back to our earlier discussions of some of Hoyt's stories. We previously discussed the Wander Sail, and this time we're going to be talking about the story of Fleet. So join us for the live discussion in 2 weeks on Monday, July 31st, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern at www.youtube.com/Cosmere Studies. Until then, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, Steve, and myself, thanks for listening, and remember, there's always
Always
another
another
secret.
secret.
Wow, that is not synced up at all.
What? No, we were perfect.